Hey, Donna here from the Everything Saxophone Podcast, and we're at the Key Leaves Everything Saxophone Podcast NAMM 2019. I'm here with Darren Rahn.
How's it going, Donna?
Going awesome, Darren. It was so great seeing you last night. He totally tore up the place at the Rovner Leger Jody Jazz Jam. You were amazing.
Oh, thank you, man. What a night!
Oh my
I mean, so many amazing saxophone players, and it's humbling. And it's amazing just to see the range of different talent and how each saxophonist has their own thing. And yeah, it was a blast.
I think humbling is a great word, and what's really interesting, the word humbling, the greatest players like yourself are the nicest people. Just talking with Kirk Whalen, he was so nice. Don Braden, so nice,
Yeah, those are, amazing guys. I was sitting at home a couple weeks ago and I got the email from Jody. And by the way, Jody Espina, who is an unbelievable musician and saxophone player. And I've played his mouthpieces for a long time. And I got the email for the jam session. And it says, you will be playing with Kirk Whalen, Tom Scott, Jeff Koshawa, and Don Braden. And I'm like, what? And Sugar, one of my all-time favorite tunes.
Me too.
Stanley Turrentine, man, one of the greats of all time.
Absolutely, very rhythmic and hip, yeah.
Yeah, and Stanley was one of my biggest influences when I started on tenor.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard him play Sugar, and I think there's video clips floating around of David Sanborn's old TV show. Night Sessions or
yeah.
I can't, something like that. And Omar Hakim on drums and Marcus Miller playing bass and just incredible. And Stanley playing. I mean, he and Sanborn played Sugar together, but Stanley, man,
I know.
what a soul.
Oh my God, I have every album. I'll say album, it's CDs, but I have every album of his and yeah, he's just, again, I use the word rhythmic because he was just so on top of things. It was very entertaining playing.
Yeah, well, and you could see that soul coming out of him. Like his stance, he would kind of, and his foot, his leg would, whenever he kind of gets soulful, his foot would wiggle, Like he couldn't contain himself, and you heard that, you could just hear that coming out of his voice.
I heard that of you though, really, seriously, because when you were performing last night, very passionate, very, getting into it, really involved with the music, absolutely.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thanks, Donna.
Cool, that's awesome. So, yeah, by the way, you do have a new single out.
I do. It's called Moxified, and it just released on Side 2 Music, which is my own record label. This is a new venture for me, but it is kind of the sneak peek of the new album that's in the works right now. I'm in the studio working on the new album.
Awesome. I gotta say something. You come up with the coolest names.
Oh,
for your albums, for your songs. Really.
I got a little help from my family on that one, because instrumental jazz. I mean, just about every title you could ever think of it's been used.
That's true.
So, how do you find a title that fits the song, that kind of encapsulates the energy or the mojo of the song, and be unique, and hopefully not cheesy,
right? True.
Moxified, maybe a bit of a stretch, maybe a little cheesy.
No, I don't think it's cheesy.
No?
I think it's cool. I think it's a great band name. Are you kidding?
The bottom line is that we found a title that had never been used before.
That's awesome.
So that in and of itself is a huge accomplishment.
Well, let me ask you something, and let's talk about titles for a second. So, you're doing instrumental jazz. When you're composing, are you thinking about a particular, concept or a story, that you're portraying?
Oftentimes, yes. But it depends. It depends on the song. I think probably more often than not, the non-radio stuff. Oftentimes there's a real, you're writing a song and you're thinking maybe of an event in your life, or, there's some sort of specific thought, a meaning behind the music. The radio format these days, sometimes, there's kind of a vibe they're looking for.
Okay.
And so the trick is, how do you maintain who you are as an artist and still, I could say the word cater.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't really like that, but there's kind of a truth to it. The format is what it is, and so if you want to be a working, successful, if you make royalties on a song, you're going to be a lot happier writing those other 9 songs that aren't radio tunes. So it's a bit of a trade-off. So the titling of it, I don't know. I think it just kind of comes to you. There was an old baseball movie. I can't remember it, but the notion in the movie was build it and they will come.
Oh, right, the Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I've always had this mentality in music of let it happen naturally, and then, the title will come. Whatever it's supposed to be will happen. And I think if you're doing music that means something, that happens.
That's so interesting. And you're talking about radio friendly versus just, not even versus just, but radio friendly versus, I guess, a bigger piece of music. Talk about some of the differences with that.
Well, I think probably the biggest difference is that for radio stuff, you've got to be mindful of what you're trying to accomplish. So a radio single is generally going to be listened to by the general public.
Right.
People who don't understand our roots in straight ahead jazz, so maybe you're blowing on a song. You're thinking, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to be bopping around a lot. So what I really need to do is find a way to express myself in a way that captures the feeling of the song. So there's probably a bigger focus on the melodic than on the improvisational aspect.
That totally makes sense.
For radio. Not always, but kind of generally speaking. And by the way, if I'm like talking really fast, I'm on day 3 of NAMM. And I mean, even though we're on microphones, I feel like...
Oh, we'd be blown away right now. There's a whole string thing going on over there in the corner.
Am I shouting right now?
No, we're all good. We got this amazing rig. I know you folks can't see it, but Rulon from Key Leaves just did this whole great rig over here, so the audio's going to be okay.
Awesome.
You're not even, I have to say it, as a New Yorker, you're not talking fast.
Oh. But I think, just to kind of summarize the whole radio versus record thing, the bottom line is, people are going to be hearing your music, so what is the emotion, what is the feeling you want to convey to others? I've always had this concept, as much as I respect the roots that I learned in jazz, some of those players were pretty to themselves, so to speak.
Okay.
I mean, cats that would proverbially turn their back on the audience, and I mean, amazing musicians, but I've always had this concept that there's higher forms of music. And to me, the highest form of music is not how great can I sound in and of myself. The highest form of music to me is when it reaches someone else's ears, I think, and it means something to them.
Yeah.
I think music becomes elevated to a higher level at that point.
It's a connection.
Yeah. And so I'm always thinking about how can I connect with the listener, just like we're talking, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm probably talking too much, but...
No, you're not. You're supposed to be. I'm interviewing you.
But that notion of having a connection, instead of just doing something that you think is amazing, but it may not connect with anyone.
That's so true, and that's so perfect. And a lot of times, we talk about when we're performing, there's like certain camps where there's people that entertain and people that play, and it's not the greatest thing, because everything should be both. I mean, when you're playing, you have to have an audience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. I like to think about it as if there's someone in that audience that's having the worst day, and I want to try to flip their mood.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, we kind of almost have a bit of a responsibility to, like, this is our calling. I mean, some people are in it for themselves, but the way I see it, the most meaningful experiences I've had is when other people are reached by music,
Definitely. One more question I wanted to ask about radio friendly versus record. Is there a time limitation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I know, like pop music, I know there is, but I wasn't sure.
But the good news is it's extended. It's getting longer. So, So 10, 15 years ago, they were capping off radio singles at 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Wow.
And like they were really strict. If you went over 3:30, it better be the hit of all time, you know, and many stations that would say, hey, if it's over 3:30, 3:35, we won't play it. And it kept getting shorter and shorter until it was down to just below 3:30, and now actually it's gone the other direction. So now we're at, safely 4 minutes, but even sometimes 4:10, 4:15. I had a single for an artist recently that was almost 4:20, and it went #1. So that's encouraging to me to see it kind of going the other direction.
Definitely, and you've had so much success, not only for yourself on the radio, but for so many other artists as a producer. So I think it's a testament to how good you are, and you understand the industry and what's going on with that.
I hope. I think, I don't know.
25 #1s?
To me, it's all relationship oriented. Other people are, they're literally thinking about #1 and they're thinking about, okay, if I play this lick, how's it going to translate to the people? And I'm like, wait, hold on. Let's see what's coming from here. Yeah. And then let's see, is there a way we can package that to where it's going to connect with people? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, my sessions in my studio are very unique. I don't like watching the clock. It's usually 50% hang time, and then when we're done hanging and chilling, then we're kind of comfortable and in the zone. Then we start on music, and then it just
because you're making the connection. You're getting to know the person.
Yeah, and that's musically. That's what music is about too.
Yeah,
it's about making a connection. We connect with the music, and if we're playing in a group, we need to have that connection with other musicians. And then ultimately that connection in sharing with the audience.
Well, just like, again, at that jam last night, you reminded me, you're saying, it comes from the heart first. And it's so interesting because Kirk Whalen was saying that last night on the side to me. And Don Braden was saying that on the side to me as well. So you're in awesome company,
I grew up listening to those guys, man. And several of them are dear friends and have been for years. But there's always going to be someone that can play faster than you. There's always someone that's going to be at a higher level of technical, ability. You look at modern saxophonists. I think many would agree. I think Michael Brecker, he set the bar, and now this many years after he's been gone, we're seeing a new crop of young men and women, boys and girls even, that are following in those footsteps. But there's always going to be someone faster and more technique. But
does it come from the heart?
What's coming from here?
Yeah.
And that I got that opportunity to play with Kirk and Don and Tom Scott and Jeff Kashawa last night, and that was dream come true for me. So I have to say to myself, okay, Darren, if you walk out there and try, there's a lot of sax players that are trying to outdo each other. If you try to do that, you're going to make a really big fool of yourself. Because first of all, you're not going to outdo, these legends. They've put in that much more time on their horn, and they've had that much more experience. So the important thing is, what do you have to say? We may have touched base on this in our previous interview.
Yeah.
But a great jazz musician once told me, he just walked up to me and said, hey, Darren, if you don't have a voice, you're not welcome to this conversation.
We didn't touch upon this.
We didn't?
Yeah, no.
This was in my college years.
Wow.
And I was crushed. I was like, but I stewed on it and I thought about it. And I realized, we emulate our heroes to learn.
Yeah.
But Kirk is one of my all-time favorites. But let's be realistic. If someone wants Kirk, they're going to call Kirk.
Yeah.
So, I hit a point where I realized I better start find who am I, and how can I use my voice in a unique way. And so, I think that's always more meaningful than a ton of notes.
It's more authentic because that's what comes across.
Yeah, and even if you are going to display, big technique, make sure that you're speaking while you're doing it. So
talk about that a little bit more. What do you mean?
Well, if we were robots and we were talking to each other, you know, when you call on the telephone and to a company and they answer and it's a robot voice?
Yes.
It's like, it's just words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we were talking to each other like that, if we took all the inflections out of our voices and the body language and took that away, it would be pretty meaningless.
Yes.
So we got to do the same thing musically. So once again, we work on licks and riffs and all that kind of stuff, but it's meaningless if there's no heart behind it. So I think the voice starts here, and then just, you know, over the years figuring out who am I? What coming out of the end of the horn? What is that defines me as an artist?
And you know, also as you as a producer, finding that in the people that you're producing.
Critical.
Yeah.
Because typically people are always trying to sound like someone else. They're heroes. Oh, I love so-and-so, I want to sound like so-and-so.
Yeah.
But that's, so-and-so didn't get well known because they
sounded like somebody else.
They became noticeable because they were unique.
Yeah.
They were themselves. We're at the show right now at NAMM, and if we turned the camera around, you would see down these aisles musicians going from booth to booth, trying to get endorsements, trying to get noticed. And you know, shaking hands is good and talking is good, but when you can pick up an instrument and be completely and utterly unique in a way that people notice, it's a game changer.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, that I know for me, the first few shows I came to, I didn't feel like I belonged here because there were so many, I mean, unbelievable, the technique of horn players. And I would pick up a horn and play something, and a couple companies said, hey, will you endorse for us? And I'm thinking, why me? But they told me, they said it's because there's something unique coming out of you.
Wow.
And man, some of the guys that I look up to in the industry are the ones that really have that depth of personality and voice. They have a voice.
Wow, what a great tip, you know, really, because it's so true for here at NAMM. And you know, oh gosh, I forget who. I think it was maybe Miles Oslin that I interviewed. We were talking about musical gymnastics, musical, you know, Olympic playing.
Yes.
I apologize if it wasn't Miles, but you see that at NAMM, you hear that, along with the strings that are right next to us.
Yes.
Sorry, folks, since I know it's loud.
We could do some Celtic dancing right now.
I know we could. We just had Gustavo, who played some klezmer music on the saxophone, so it worked out really well with this. But anyway, you know, the Olympic, the saxophone Olympics, the gymnastics that go on, and it's fun, it's exciting, but it's after a while, it's like, okay, but what was the message?
What's the meaning behind it?
Yeah.
You know, and that ties into another thing that kind of is important to me, at least, which is, for all my experience and, you know, whatever the company's endorsements, I feel like I'm every bit the student that I was 30 years ago. I'm in a different place. I've made lots of progress, and you know, I'm confident in what I do. But I feel like I always want to learn. Are there gaps that I can close in my playing? Am I consistently playing from the heart, and not just automatically going into autopilot? You know? Yeah,
and you know, that's such an important point too. And I know, you know, a lot of times when we perform, you know, let's face it, we do think about, you know, am I going to sound good? Am I going to look good? Am I going to compare with everybody else that I'm on the stage with? But, you know, I think the thing, I guess the key is to just really tap into what's inside of you.
You have to. Last night's a perfect example. You played last night. I played last night. How many sax players played last night?
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember. So many. 100,
200?
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
And if your goal is how do I compare to so and so, really honestly, you know, even if you're in the top 10%, how do you make a gauge of how successful you were?
Yeah.
To me, it's about what you're saying, that authenticity, making sure that what we're delivering musically is meaningful. And, you know, I think if you do that, To me, that's considered a successful night.
And I think that resonates with the audience a lot. Like, I was watching some people in the front row and watching when they got into, everybody was like, oh, this is amazing. But I was watching a particular woman and how she was getting into certain performances and parts of performances. And it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when people stand up and pour out their soul, last night, Haley, she got up there on her soprano, and her guts were hanging out the end of that horn. But it was like, it came from a place of just, it was genuine, it was real, and that was amazing. And Kirk, and
it was very inspiring, and I have to give a ton of credit to Jody Espina and Danielle Walker for putting that on, because it was so organized, and the level of talent was through the roof, and not only of the saxophone players but the rhythm section too.
World class. And Jody and Danielle, the work that has to go into a night like that, it's insane. So they're my heroes. They're officially my heroes, and and of course they're both fantastic musicians as well.
Yes.
So
Jody blows me away with his playing, and some of the solos he took, I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah, that dude has a lot of heart.
Yes. He does.
Yeah.
And it's rare to see that, from a mouthpiece maker or an instrument maker,
Well, I think that's why his mouthpieces do so well, because, there's a player designing the mouthpieces.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference.
It definitely does. And I remember when he was in New York at first, and he had a shop in New York, and that's how I met him. And I was saying this to Danielle before. I had gotten the classic mouthpiece, very similar to the Runyon mouthpieces, but that was a great mouthpiece. Holy cow. And then I was on the DV7s. I still have the Alto DV7, and on that for such a long time, and just always so free-blowing,
That, to me, that stuff ties into what we were talking about, the musical personality and everything. Just personally, I could say that when I'm looking at gear, I'm not looking for something to make me, to change the way I sound. I'm thinking more in terms of, okay, I want gear that allows me to be me.
Bring your sound out.
Where my sound comes out, rather than, okay, we're all finicky and what can I do to improve my sound? I think it's more sometimes stripping away the things that aren't supposed to be there and letting who you are come through. So I know for me, the Jody jazz pieces, the P. Moorhead saxophones, for me, it feels like it just allows who I am to come out,
That's cool, and that's another, great thing about NAMM too, I would encourage anybody, if you're able to get to NAMM, definitely show up, because you get to try out a lot of things, and you get to see, what works for you and what helps you to bring your voice out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very lucky to do that. Well, listen, Darren, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy. We're tired. You said we're day 3. We're trying to hold on.
Are my eyes open?
No, it was just crazy stuff. But I want to thank you for your time. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you.
It's my pleasure, Donna. And thank you for everything you do in our saxophone community, for, great interviews. And, of course, you're a great musician yourself. So we appreciate everything you're doing to shine the spotlight on kind of the inside of the saxophone world.
Cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Awesome.